this is John Sadak, TV voice of the Cincinnati Reds, and you're up for Late Night Reds Talk.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday night, and welcome to another fantastic edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live, here part of the Believe Podcast Network, and sponsored by our good friends at Bet Online. The big game is finally here as we hit Super Bowl Sunday with the last game of the football season. I don't think they can actually say Super Bowl Sunday, so that's on me. As always, Bet Online is you covered from odds, scores, totals, player performance props, and where the next fire coach is going to land. Bet Online is the number one spot for all NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage into the best in the business, from sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is your number one wagering destination. Head to BetOnline and use your mobile device and sign up today. Receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get started and bet on the Bengals, most importantly. Hooday. I am Tim Daniel. I'm so happy to be here with my favorite people. It is a crazy week in Cincinnati sports, and we're talking about the one that has a lockout. So how about our luck? Let's go ahead and get into our excellent panel. As always, our producer, the man who puts this together for us each and every week. Please, if you haven't, take a second to check him out last week on the Riverfront with our good pal Chad Dotson. Did an excellent job. Our good friend and yours, Nicholas Kirby. How are you, buddy?
What is going on, fellas? Our guest tonight, Zach, I'm guessing he probably didn't think, as a guy in Wisconsin, be talking about a baseball team in February while the football team in Cincinnati is playing in the Super Bowl. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind couple of weeks for us in the state of Wisconsin. But thank you guys so much for having me aboard. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Also here with us on our excellent panel, former Major League Big Leaguer, also now, as I found out today, the manager of the Cincinnati Reds baseball media Twitter wiffle ball team, as he pronounced, our good friend Carlos Guevara. So, Carlos, where am I hitting, particularly in the order?
I think you're hitting second, buddy.
Okay.
From the left side, you bat lefty too?
I do bat lefty.
Yeah, we're taking you second overall.
Here's my dumbass. My dumbass thought that when I was a kid and I played baseball that, I grew up in the Ken Griffey Jr. era like Nick. We're in that age group where like he was God. And I literally tried to bat like him. I did the stand-up stance, the like wiggle.
Oh yeah.
And but my swing wasn't anywhere near his.
Yeah, if you're anywhere near our age and if you didn't do that stance as a kid, you're not a baseball fan.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And like Nick said earlier, joining us today to talk about the Brewers in the finale of our NL Central Division preview. I promise I'll be a lot nicer with him than I was about the Pirates because his team's actually good. Check our new friend, welcomed into the show, Mr. Zac Bellman. You can check him out in the Milwaukee area. Welcome, man. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you, and really going to talk a lot about this Brewers team who's been really good for a while now. So we'll kind of go ahead and we'll go through some of the things, because I'm going to ask you a lot of probably funny Brewers questions from my lifetime of going against them. But with that being said, so obviously since 2018, they've been the top of the National League Central. 56% winning percentage, 316 wins, have had some awesome pitching performances that I can remember in years past. 2018, they win the Central. They go ahead and they lose in Game 7 of the LCS to the Dodgers as they start their big run going through the National League. They have the heartbreaker in the wild card against the Nats. I think that's the year the Nats won the series, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, I forgot that you guys won in Great American, and we were nice enough to our friends that aren't the Pirates or the Cubs to let you guys enjoy our Jumbotron for that. So you're welcome.
Yeah, y'all do that again. We're turning the lights off.
2020, obviously a weird year. The Brewers make the playoffs with an under 500 record. But come last year, get off to a little bit of a rocky start. They're 21-23. They're 4 games back. Jesse Winker has one of his best games of the year. Look at that. My guy, Jeff Wallner, wrote that article. My good friend, Jeff. I hope he's watching as I give him some love here, actually. Shout out to Jeff. He's a good dude.
Shout out, Jeff.
You guys cheered for Willie Adames, which pissed off every Reds fan because that was a guy they all wanted. And maybe sold some baseball cards for him. Go crazy after the Adames trade to go 7 games up on the division. The Reds do have that series where they go 3 out of 4, and then you guys come in right for the All-Star break and right after the All-Star break and sweep us and ruin our season. So we got some bones to pick with you, apparently. But lose to the Braves in 4. Obviously they were awesome. They won the World Series, and so you trade Jackie Bradley Jr. Evaso Garcia is going to Miami. Escobar's on the move. I don't know what it was about the Red Sox and Jackie Bradley Jr. and why they love him so much, but I guess they do. Congrats getting Hunter Renfroe. That's a really nice get for them. So got a little busy before the lockout. Obviously, a really good baseball team last year. We're kind of the opposite of the Reds at times, where it was like, their pitching of the Brewers carried them for so long, when the Reds was like their hitting. So it was a really fun matchup in those games. When you look back at the season they just had and kind of moving forward to the future, what do you look for from this Brewers team that kind of excites you?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the Hunter Renfroe trade, I think for a lot of Brewers fans was as much about getting Jackie Bradley off the books
I'm sure.
as it was getting Hunter Renfroe out of it. But honestly, I think half the Brewers nation that heard about that trade was like, "Oh, Jackie Bradley's gone. Okay, that's fine. Whatever we got back, whatever. It doesn't matter. It could have been nothing." But
it's our Homer Bailey. We understand.
Yeah, and that kind of ended up being a kind of 2 moves in 1 kind of deal, because you get kind of a pretty serviceable, if not improvement, on Evaso Garcia in the corner outfield and right field there, and you also get Jackie Bradley off the books there, and he was kind of just did not quite latch on with Milwaukee. I think hitting sub 200. That was one of the players we weren't really excited about this past year, but obviously you mentioned Adames there in the intro. I mean, he just was an absolute firecracker for this Brewers squad. They were kind of middle of the road, as you kind of pointed out there, around 500. He comes in, was a huge offensive boon to them, as Christian Yelich is unfortunately still in the midst of this slump that kind of started in 2020 in the shortened season, and has continued here in through 2021. Never really quite found the power stroke again. Seemed to be struggling with the curveball. So offensively, he was a little bit of a struggle, but Adames comes in there and provides a lot of offensive firepower, and just enthusiasm in the lineup, and the pitching obviously carried them to the playoffs this past year, which was a noticeable difference from those first couple of playoff appearances of the last couple of years, because they'd been rolling to the playoffs on their offense with guys like Jhoulys Chacín kind of filling in as veteran starters and stuff, kind of 1-year rentals in filling out their rotation. But now they got 3 bona fide studs. All were various, kind of Cy Young candidates at different points in the season. Peralta really came on, made the All-Star team. So a lot to be excited about, especially with the pitching that the Brewers have had, over this past year.
I do have to tell you, you didn't know us at the time, and so this is okay. It's my fault that Rowdy Tellez had that run where he was Barry Bonds in July. I said that I really wish the Brewers would play him more because it was easier outs for the Reds pitching, and then he went crazy from there on. So you're welcome.
And we instantly corrected you when you said it. We instantly said this is a bad idea. Rowdy's not a terrible player, but you had to do it, and you ruined the Red season. It's on you.
Every time he hit a home run, there was like it would be Nick or Carlos or some of our listeners would send me a tweet like, "Yeah, he did another one." I was like, "I know, I saw."
You're not allowed to do predictions at the beginning of the year this year.
Not anymore. Nope. I'm retired from predictions.
Zach, on that Renfroe for Bradley trade, the Brewers had to throw in 2 pretty decent prospects to make that trade happen, right?
Yeah, remind me. I hadn't looked that one up specifically because it had been a while, but the prospects that they gave up, obviously, were compensation for the money that the Red Sox were taking on, but certainly nothing that the Brewers already were kind of they're in the bottom third of the league as far as their farm system. I think the Athletic just came out with the minor league rankings as far as farm systems, and I think the Brewers came in 26 on that, which is actually 2 steps up from where they were a year before. They were 28. So I think where the Brewers are at right now in this kind of if you want to call it a championship window, I think with the recent boon of offense that they've had, plus the pitching coming on, I think you could call it a contention window for the Brewers. And I think losing a couple guys in their prospect system while keeping their top guys isn't a tremendous loss for them, but yeah.
I did find it was their 16th and 17th ranked prospects, both of them to make that deal. So there wasn't a lot of flack from Brewers fans that was kind of a little bit of a salary dump, because I know if the Reds did something like that, Reds fans would be up in arms that they dump players instead of signing a free agent.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a necessary move. I think like I said, the collective kind of reaction from Brewers fans is like, thank God Jackie Bradley's off the books, because like I said, hitting sub 200 was kind of brought in to be a fourth outfielder / defensive replacement, and just didn't quite find it at the plate ever. It seemed like he hit like 160 or something like that, and I couldn't tell you about a single hit he had. It was like having a second pitcher in the lineup, at times for Bradley, but. Good for him to get back to Boston, because he's hit pretty well there and had a pretty good career. So, hopefully he can find it again. But in the meantime, I'm excited to see how Renfroe's bat plays at Miller Park.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
he had a
like
good year for
that.
the Red Sox.
I like that whole trade and getting the signing of Renfroe. Like, I feel like it's a win for the Brewers. They got better. I mean, not a whole lot better, but they still got better.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, you got the power, that Garcia brought, because Garcia was a big impact in that lineup, especially with Yelich struggling for most of the year, and he brings the power and that right field arm, that is always helpful to avoid extra bases turning from doubles into triples. So excited to see how he fits into the lineup.
Yeah.
We got a comment here from Michael Coble, who said, sometimes a roster dump is needed, so the Brewers are a team to watch. Even as someone who's in the same division, obviously it's easy to respect and admire what they've been able to put together. And obviously, like we've talked about already quite a bit through the show, that starts at pitching, and the pitching obviously starts with Corbin Burns. Just an unbelievable year. I have him in my Dynasty Fantasy League, so very happy about that. Not to mention he's not even 28 yet. Just got recognized last year, obviously rightfully so, for his outs. He was just unbelievable. I know, when he would be him and Sonny Gray, it was sort of very, very fun 2-1 games that you would see when they pitch against each other this year. What really kind of jumped out to you about what you saw from his growth from 2020? And it was a shortened season, obviously, but 2020 to 2021, when he became the Cy Young, and when he just jumped to being that guy, was so impressive for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I obviously have followed Burns' whole journey from being that bullpen guy that kind of came on in 2018, had a big impact on that season, and then they threw him full time into the rotation in 19, and he struggled mightily. And I think it was having to do mostly with him throwing the four seamer quite a bit, and was getting tagged quite a bit. And I think for him now, it's throwing more sinkers, more cutters. Just getting hitters off balance and stuff like that, and just the command was exceptional. I remember watching wire to wire his 8 innings of no hit ball that Hader ended up finishing, and just the command was just exceptional the whole night. And I think that was something and just really continued throughout the season. And I do remember early on in the season as well, he had a streak of 30-something innings. I believe set or tied the major league record for innings without throwing a walk. And I think just the command is the biggest difference for me in what I've seen in Burns over the last 2 years.
You've talked a bit about Christian Yelich. Obviously wins a National League MVP, and then has really, really struggled for a while. But when you look at his splits, I think what's really fascinating to me is, and I'm not a guy that really cares about batting average necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So the 249, it doesn't really mean anything to me. I know that's very unpopular with 1990 Cincinnati baseball fans. But still the 360 on base percentage looks like he's still taking walks, but 9 home runs in a full season. What can you kind of say? From us, we only see him 20 times a year. What can you kind of is there anything you can kind of see necessarily is a giant hole in his swing that's kind of developed over a couple of years? What kind of jumps out to you from his struggles?
Yeah, and from the games that I saw, I think the biggest thing that I noticed that was different in Yelich is he did not seem to be connecting on the breaking ball all that often. Just a lot of swings right over the top. And I was going to point this out as far as offseason acquisitions. I think the Brewers' biggest offseason acquisitions, this year may not even be players on the field. It may be the changes that they made at hitting coach, getting rid of Andy Haynes, who I believe was a friend of Yelich's through the time in Miami, and bringing in, let me get the names here, Connor Dawson and Ozzie Timmons. And, Connor brings kind of the analytical technical aspect. He's a younger pitcher from the Mariners or a younger hitting coach from the Mariners organization who brings kind of the technical aspect, while Ozzie Timmons was a former player who kind of, went from that into coaching with the Rays and has been with the Rays organization for the last couple of years. So I'm really interested to see what they bring to the offensive struggles that both Yelich and I think another big name to keep an eye on for a potential bounce back would be Keston Hiura, who kind of, played second base his rookie year, had 19 home runs in a very small sample size. And, then in 2020 and 2021 just kind of fell off and completely lost it. He looked completely behind on the fastball. But for Yelich, yeah, I think the not connecting on the breaking ball was the biggest noticeable difference for me, and just not seeing the ball very well, seemed to be the biggest thing. And I think, that OBP kind of speaks to, at times he was still kind of given, that borderline Barry Bonds treatment as far as, teams were still respecting his ability to come up with the big hit. Although Brewers fans who watched all last season or most of the last 2 seasons would tell you there wasn't a whole lot of big vintage Christian Yelich moments in the big spots this past year, and that kind of came down to their last out of the season, which I remember being a strikeout looking for Yelich. So I think that kind of was a microcosm of the season for him, and the fact that he was not seeing the ball very well.
Zach,
Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
So, Zach, what was your thoughts on Colton Wong? I know he was hurt a lot, but I feel like he was really a super valuable player for the Brewers last year, hitting leadoff. Had a pretty nice season.
Absolutely. I think, a very underrated signing as far as, major league signings this last year goes. Obviously, a lot of attention was given to Willy Adames in the midseason acquisition, but the Brewers really didn't have, a consummate leadoff hitter. They were coming off a season in which Lorenzo Cain had not participated. He'd opted out due to COVID in 2020. And, they kind of needed someone they could rely on to have lengthy at bats, to drive up a pitch count, show up pitchers' whole repertoire throughout the course of an at bat. And Wong absolutely was that guy, and then some. Great on base percentage guy, great tone setter at the top of the lineup that the Brewers really haven't had for the last couple of years, as Lorenzo Cain's skills have diminished a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he was an incredibly valuable addition for the Brewers, both in just tone setting and just being a consummate leadoff hitter for the Brewers was extremely valuable. Plus, taking him away from the Cardinals, as part of the deal, was just as valuable probably as bringing him aboard. So.
Yeah, I didn't seem to dislike him as much whenever he was wearing a Brewers uniform.
He looked better in that uniform for sure.
Yeah.
Be fair.
I wanted to ask about Devin Williams, how the fans felt about it, during the playoffs, and what do you think, how they're gonna, cheer him on come April?
Well, I think Brewers fans are pretty loyal and understanding, and so I'm not worried about him getting booed the first time out of the bullpen or anything like that. But obviously, the Devin Williams situation was extremely disappointing for Brewers fans and I think there was a little bit of, let's be realistic about this, because Devin Williams wasn't going to come off the bench to hit a walk-off grand slam, like but there was the possibility that maybe a game that's in the 8th inning that's close, where he would be the guy, somebody else is the guy, and then it ends up not going their way. That didn't really play out as far as the Braves series. The biggest thing was the biggest bugaboo for the Brewers down the stretch last season, which was just the offense did not show up in the big moments, did not get guys on base, come through with runners in scoring position. It was just an abysmal last 3 weeks to a month of the season, and the Brewers barely scratched any runs across. I think Rowdy Tellez's 2 home runs were basically the entire offense for the season. So there you go, Rowdy Tellez again. Save the Brewers from getting blanked in a 3-game series there. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be any animosity towards Williams. I think the Brewers fans are just anxious, to see how he comes back, because I think that when you're talking about a fracture in the pitching hand, as he sustained, and I was, just reviewing what's out there on that, it sounded like he admitted that it was some altercation that, rather than get upset at the person and get physically violent with them, he punched a wall, and that's how we got the fracture. So obviously, very disappointing, for Brewers fans who wanted him there for the playoff stretch and to be that setup guy, for Hader, but it didn't work out that way. We're just, I think, hoping that for the long term, he's okay and can keep up this dominant run as being that excellent 1-2 punch that is really unrivaled, in the majors as far as going from Williams to Hader there.
Yeah. Do you worry about that going into next year, about, the offense kind of, maybe Willie Adames coming down to earth a little bit, coming back down to his mean? Is that a real issue? Are you thinking there might be a chance that they can find another bat to kind of help boost up that lineup?
Oh, for sure. And like I said, I think that's why it really comes down to, can those new hitting coaches get the guys that they have, performing back to their abilities. As I was looking through the roster, with Tellez back, hopefully he can at least perform at his average level. I don't think they need, obviously it's been a Prince Fielder sized hole at first base ever since he left the organization. But he has certainly demonstrated that he can bring some offense to Les. I really think, as far as, as you look down that lineup there, I really think it's about getting the guys that you have back to what they can, have proven that they can do. And for Yelich, that's not necessarily an MVP level. But, certainly if you get him threatening with a, 280, 300 average again, threatening with, 20, 30 home runs once again, and just getting on base more in the middle of that lineup and coming through with a couple clutch hits, certainly that offense is starting to look back to where it needs to be. And with that, again, that starting 3, starting 4 rotation, you're not going to need 5-7 runs a game to win a lot of games, and with that rotation. So I'm not overly concerned as far as needing a new player to be brought in. I think it's just getting, the young guys like Arias that really came on last year, continuing on the projected path. And some guys like Omar Narvaez that started to figure it out after his first rough season with Milwaukee in the shortened season. There's a lot of potential in this lineup, and I don't see a lot of holes when guys are right. But I think if there is a DH this year, getting somebody like Keston here going to be that daily DH would be a significant boon to this offense.
Zach, there's been some rumors about Josh Hader. I mean, do you think there's a chance that the Brewers could try to move him the offseason whenever we have like our 2-week rest of the offseason before spring training?
There have been rumors about Hader being moved for the last couple years, and I'll admit initially I was kind of on board with that idea. I felt that his home run trends were not going in the right direction. It seemed like hitters were kind of figuring out, hey, I just need to sit on that fastball because he can't even locate the zone with his off-speed stuff. And what I really noticed, to Hader's credit, and why I think he won reliever of the year again this year, was the fact that he developed that breaking ball. That slider was just knockout. And the fact that he could locate that for strikes in the zone completely added a new dimension to his game, because it was very evident that hitters were sitting on that fastball. And I think that brought his home run totals back down. Hitters were having to guess again. And, when obviously when you got hitters guessing, that's when he pulls the fastball right by you or makes you buckle your knees as you take a slider. So I think Hader's a piece that they want to have for the duration of this championship window. And I don't, I think as much as Brewers fans have wanted the game out, like, can we get a nice third base prospect and a couple other prospects for a Hader or something to a Yankees or something like that? I don't really see that as a possibility anymore. I think the Brewers like what they have and are going to stick with Hader for the long term here until they maybe have to deal with him as far as a free agent contract.
Can we interest y'all in a Moose comeback?
Moose is beloved in Milwaukee. I mean,
We know that's why we're offering him back.
As I'm sure you guys.
We can make it official right now.
I'm not qualified to make that kind of determination, but I'll tell you, Moose is beloved in Milwaukee, and he was a big part of that 2018 team that's kind of started this run. So he's always got a soft spot in Milwaukee fans' hearts, for sure.
Royals fans love him too. It's so funny that wherever he goes, people are like,
part of a championship team with the Royals.
That part makes sense. Yeah. Like Alex Gordon is like a god there.
Every single one of them. My buddy who moved down here from Kansas, 10, 12 years ago, he's a diehard, and I mean, I can't say one bad word about any of them. He's all over me about them.
Oh, we've seen that with Kane too. I mean, on the Brewers as well. Another former Royal.
Yeah. So who made the All-Star team last year, other than the pitching staff? Was there?
Ooh, that's a good question.
But they have a hitter?
I believe Garcia was there. Let me just double check that.
Dang, he must have had a really good first half.
He was a nightmare against us for a while.
He was a huge. I mean, he was one of the only guys producing for the Brewers there. I know Peralta was there. Okay. So it was Corbin Burns, Josh Hader, Omar Narvaez who had a big first half. Freddie Peralta and Brandon Woodruff. So it was not Garcia, but
Garcia was a really, really good player. I mean, if you look at his StatCast page, you compare it next to Nick Castellanos, it wasn't as big of a gap as you might think. He was a really, really good hitter for them. That's a tough loss. Renfroe's a really good hitter against left-handed pitching. I don't know if he's necessarily. I don't think he's going to match that value against a right-handed pitching that Garcia, because Garcia didn't have the drastic splits.
See, this is one of those moments where I wish we started writing this stuff down, because I'll take Renfroe over last year's production of Garcia as a bet.
Okay,
you'll take Renfroe to out-hit Garcia.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
Are we talking OPS? Who has the higher OPS?
I'll let you know at the end of the year what stat I want to use. All right, buddy.
I'll take that bet, man. I mean, Renfroe is probably a better defender. He's definitely not.
We'll go with
hitter.
WAR. We'll go with.
I mean, he hits a lot of homers. That's about it. He doesn't do anything else.
Okay, well. We'll talk off.
Yeah, I was a little suspect of the contact numbers for Renfroe, but I mean, like we saw with Adames, sometimes just a change of scenery, can mean a huge boon on the batting average. The reports, I don't know if you guys kind of saw, but it was flying around how Adames was like, I couldn't hit at the Trop at all. I couldn't hit in Tropicana with the Rays because I couldn't see the ball. That's one of those guys, anytime the Brewers bring in a big power bat, I'm always excited to see, how that plays at Miller Park. Because like with the Reds, another notoriously hitter-friendly park, it's kind of exciting to see how a guy that's maybe had success in your building, or maybe he just hasn't had a lot of opportunities in your building, gets to come in and see how that swing plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, we're pretty sure Willie Adames knew he had 1 foot out the door in Tampa. Once you heard the Wander Franco train tracks, I think he was his bags were already packed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yelich had a 3.5. What did he finish last year? Was he a 3? That's a 3.3, not 3.5.
That was that's projected for this year, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what last year's were. See if Nick and
4.1.
Oh, really? Oh. Dang, they're going to 3.3.
Yeah, 4.1. I think if I remember right, I don't know
it's
how.
Way higher than I would have guessed.
I think he had 0.7 with Tampa or something. It was.
Oh, you did Adames.
Who are you wanting to do?
Christian Yelich.
Yeah. Yelich or Yelich?
Yelich.
Yelich. I was right. Ha.
Yeah.
He had 1 year with Barry Bonds as hitting coach, man. You know?
Yelich was a 1.5. Yelich is a decent defender, so he kind of gets a little bit of value from that. I mean, Yelich. I mean, he still had a 101 weighted runs created plus, so it wasn't like he was
Right.
horrendous. I mean, he was an
Yeah.
average. He was an average hitter. I mean, obviously he's getting paid to be better than an average hitter, but he wasn't Eugenio Suarez, Mike Moustakas bad. That's for sure. He wasn't.
Yeah, and certainly with the league averages, kind of on the downswing
Right.
lately as pitchers are kind of taking over the league. You kind of take all of that with a grain of salt, but you kept waiting. I think as a Brewers fan, you kept waiting for that big moment that oh, Yelich is back, and can't say it ever really came.
It was their Gino Suarez.
Yeah.
That's what he
Well,
was.
Zach, not every team has Joey Votto to where he just doesn't age,
Suarez just needs to face Josh Hader every night. For some reason, that's the only
that's the one
that's
guy.
the only pitcher he can hit, and
heads up and right center.
The one guy is, the most dominant closer in baseball the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we did get this question from Michael Coble, who had a comment earlier, but he asked you, where do you think the Brewers' biggest challenge would be going into the next season?
Yeah, I think that's kind of along the lines of what we kind of discussed as far as getting the guys that they have right again. And I think, the offseason priority for the Brewers, as much as bringing anybody in, was just we gotta get Yelich back up to what we think, he can do as far as a run producer, being that reliable third guy in the order. And I think, secondary to that is, just getting the entire offense in more of a rhythm, just getting a 1 through 4 that you can rely upon in the first, inning or two to put up a run or two for you and get get a lead for these impeccable starting rotation that you have, because these guys demonstrated that they can protect a lead, and I think it's just about getting that top 4 or 5 in the order back performing in a way that you can reliably scratch at least a run across, and get deep into an opponent's bullpen, because the Brewers have got guys who can go 5, 6, 7 innings solidly now. They like I said, when you had these veterans like Chacin that were covering all these innings for them, they were pitching 5 innings and done if you were lucky, and now they got some bona fide studs who can go 6, 7 innings reliably on any given day, and it's just about scratching that first run across. So I think offensively is getting right there is the biggest challenge for the Brewers this year. I don't know what you guys think.
Do you worry about, in years past, obviously, like we've talked about, Yelich was an MVP, Ryan Braun was an MVP, Chris Fielder was awesome, and Corey Hart. Like, you can go down the list, for a long time now. But do you worry about the fact that there isn't, like, I don't want to be disrespectful by saying there's not a super feared guy in the line, because Yelich, obviously, like you said, like, people are still worried about the fact he could pick up an extra base hit with one swing of the bat. But do you kind of worry about there's not like that one guy that's like a pitch around kind of guy-esque at this point?
Well, I think Yelich still commands that type of respect. Maybe after the last 2 years, teams are starting to think differently about that. But in baseball, your best guy is still getting about the same amount of at bats as your ninth guy in the order. So I'm not as concerned about having one guy that you necessarily fear, but you do want guys that can come through in the big spots. That you're excited as an offensive or a fan of the offensive team, that you're excited that they're up in the big spots. And I think Yelich is drifting away from that, but I think can be hauled back in. And certainly, I think there's an excitement for Brewers fans looking at that projected lineup there, because I think you can look at that as a Brewers fan and think any one of those guys could have a 2-3 hit day. A couple of those guys could have a two homer day. So I think that possibility that you got a well-rounded lineup and can get production, because on those teams, like you said, with with Fielder and Braun in their heydays and stuff like that, sometimes you got guys at the bottom of the lineup that, in those 2-3 or 2-3 from the bottom, batting 7 and 8 and stuff like that, where you're like, let's just go on to the next inning. These guys aren't going to have an impact on the game. But now you got a guy who was an all-star last year in Narvaez, maybe hidden down there. You got a guy who's been an all-star in the past, a Gold Glover, and Lorenzo Cain. Just a lot of possibilities for production for the Brewers up and down the lineup, and I think that's something as a Brewers fan to be excited about.
Is there fear of the fact that Christian Yelich looks like Sheen from Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius?
Never heard that one.
I think he looks a lot more, and I think it's been brought up. The guy from SNL,
Pete Davidson?
Yeah, he looks like Pete Davidson. I think more so than Charlie Sheen, but
I had to get that in. There's obviously you picking your brain on the Brewers. I joked about this with you earlier in the show before we started recording. So, I had Red season tickets for a long time. So I went to many, many Reds Brewers games in my time. And for some reason or another, in that time frame that I had season tickets, Ricky Weeks was extremely mid against everyone in baseball but the Reds. Is there ever been someone who's figured out why that was? Like, he was just incredible against the Reds, and everyone else he just sucked against. I never understood what was going on, what we were doing.
I'm sure you cursed him at some point, Tim.
Probably. I'm sure.
Everybody's got a guy that they're just convinced, hits better against them, or just, I think Castellanos was always a Brewer killer. Votto's always been a Brewer killer.
Jay Bruce was one.
What?
Jay Bruce was a big one.
Oh, yeah. Jay Bruce. Yep, for sure. So, it cuts both ways. Ricky had a few good years, and, they just brought him back in a personnel role. I'm kind of excited about that. Although those kind of moves always, between that and seeing players that you watch their career start and end go into Hall of Fames, that really ages me. I don't know about you guys, but that just makes me feel a lot older. So it's interesting to see guys like that come back. Ricky, had some good years against the Reds, and was always a good at bat. Miss a guy like that, but yeah.
Yeah, whenever he would take BP, it was like listening to Jay Bruce take BP. You could turn your back and you knew who the heck was hitting. You knew it was Ricky Weeks. He hit knuckleballs 50% of the time, and when you hit a knuckleball off of the bat, that thing's coming off hot and hard. It was fun.
Yeah, he had a smooth little compact swing that generated a lot of power.
I could never get that guy out. I mean, I only faced him in the minor leagues, but I'd rather face Prince Fielder and Ryan Braun than him in the minor leagues. I mean, that guy just crushed me.
Carlos Gomez was kind of that way too against the Reds, but his was defensively. He would always rob Votto of homers, always. And it was always maddening. There was he had a walk-off rob, I remember
that one vividly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was painful.
Yeah.
I think I have a bobblehead of that. I'd show it to you, but I literally broke it this weekend. So,
so Zach, I've asked a couple of the teams, since we started doing this in division thing here, but what is your most memorable, probably painful Joey Votto story against the Brewers? Or memory?
Painful Joey Votto stories. Gosh. You're asking me to dig deep here. As you were going there, I thought you were going to ask me for a positive Brewers memory, but I tend to lock things away that are painful, Carlos. I don't know about you, but
the thing that's funny is every single person who's asked this to has been you can't hate the guy, but he destroys our team.
I don't hate him either. I'm a big MLB The Show player, and for some reason I hit really well with Joey Votto's cards.
I know.
He's got a great swing in that game. So I for that reason, and I think generally goes about his business the right way and stuff like that. See more good press than bad. So there's nothing I can talk bad about Joey Votto. Great player, respect him a lot. So
that's the answers we like to hear. Good job, buddy. You're welcome back anytime.
Sounds good.
Zach, kind of looking over the Brewers lineup, kind of one more time here. To me, it feels like a lineup that is maybe more of, the sum of the parts than kind of having that star player. I mean, do you kind of feel that way? I don't think they maybe have that Winker Votto, elite level hitters. but they might be deeper than a lot of other teams in the division. Do you kind of feel that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that goes back to the question I answered about having players, a feared player in the lineup. I think, as I look a little bit harder, I think, 3, 4, and 5 are the types of seasons those guys have. It's with most teams, so maybe this isn't a very revolutionary thought, but I think the way the seasons go for those three and 3, 4, 5 in that projected lineup, and Yelich, Renfroe, and Tellez are going to go a long way in telling the offensive story for the Brewers this year. I think whether Yelich gets back to what he can be, not necessarily an MVP level, but at least a productive, potentially feared player again. And then how does Renfroe's bat play at Miller Park is going to be certainly interesting. I'm not sure if he necessarily, obviously got a nice little righty-lefty balance there, but I'm not sure if he's necessarily the guy that's plugged in at 4. So, where they put him and where he's used will be interesting. And then, can Tellez keep up what he was able to be for the Brewers down the stretch, a very productive hitter for average and power. So, certainly big question marks, I would say, on the right side of that field right there with Tellez / a, potential timeshare with Hira, if Hira can get right, or if he's ending up in a DH type role. And then, how does Renfroe's bat play at Miller Park? Tyrone Taylor's another guy that we haven't really talked about much, but, another guy who's really coming on, a young player who's got some more time with Kane and Garcia, having to take some rest here at different spots, but and Yelich as well. Can Taylor keep up the production, be a productive fourth outfielder without necessarily the playing time of an everyday player? That's obviously a very difficult ask for a lot of players to be a relied upon fourth outfielder. But Taylor proved he could be a big hitter in spots, and you don't want to stunt his development, but there's obviously some proven guys in front of him, so we'll see how he fits with all of this as well.
Yelich's ZiPS projections are pretty wild. I mean, Yelich in 2020 had a 786 OPS, 2021 736 OPS, and ZiPS is still projecting him at 855, which just 2 years in a row of performing 100 points less. So I don't know. I don't like to question ZiPS because there's a reason these projections are so good and have done that. But that's kind of a wild project. That'll be one of those kind of I think very interesting players to watch. Is ZiPS right on him, or was that number a little off? I mean, I guess they're just basing on his career and bouncing back. I mean, Votto kind of had a couple years where he wasn't close to his career and then kind of boom, just jump back. I mean, I guess it's possible. It's kind of an interesting player.
Yeah, for sure. I think offense kind of in the whether the offense bounce backs kind of comes and goes with him. So we'll see for sure how those predictions hold up. I mean, I think part of it's an injuries thing for Yelich too, because obviously you got the fractured kneecap that ended his 2019 season. That it was questionable whether he kind of recovered from that. He's also been dealing with a back injury. That obviously that's pretty big in hitting, is being able to rotate with your back and stuff like that. And that may have explained some of the struggles that he had at the plate. So we'll see. We'll see how that all shakes up, and if he can, be a little bit healthier this season, and if the hitting coaches have anything to say about the swing.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. So Zach, we are gonna ask a little bit about some of the Brewers prospects, but before we do have to talk about NordVPN. What's more important than peace of mind? Nothing. And that's where NordVPN is here for, to give you peace of mind while you're online. With all the threats that you may face today on the internet, it's more important than ever to be sure that you have the best VPN you can get. NordVPN is the world's best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, most servers, and next-gen encryption to make sure everything you do online stays secure. Plus, you can use NordVPN on all of your computers and devices, no matter the operating system. With NordVPN's unlimited bandwidth, you never have to worry about a slow connection either, and plans start at under $4 per month. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/believe, BLEAV, or use the code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get to 70% off your NordVPN plan plus 1 additional month for free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So that's nordvpn.com/believe. I need to do that myself. So we'll talk a little bit about the Brewers prospects. We like to kind of go through this with everybody, and really kind of a unique group. I mean, if you look right now, so Aaron Ashby was major, was the guy that was major league level, but everything else is kind of that double AAA, low A kind of situation. You kind of talked about recently earlier in the show that the Athletic rated the Brewers prospect pretty low. And it kind of more of the reason why they're kind of going more quote unquote all in the championship window, like you mentioned. Is there anything really particular, any guys you can tell us about here that maybe we should keep an eye on, that we as Reds fans that we should look forward to seeing join the Major League Ball Club in the future?
Oh, for sure. I think Aaron Ashby is a guy, he made it to the majors last season. And, I think he flew a little under the radar because that first time out against the Cubs, he actually gave up 7 earned runs and was wearing some goggles that were actually like fogging up on his face. So he later said, like, I could barely see out there. And that game actually ended up, if you remember, he didn't get hung up with the loss despite giving up 7 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning. Because the Brewers came back and scored like 15 in that game and ended up unseating the Cubs. And then a couple weeks later, that they ended up kind of blowing it up at the deadline. So that was kind of the last gasp for the Cubs as we knew them for a number of years there. But for Ashby, he really came on after that game, had his ERA down as far as 2.9 after that abysmal start. Heading into the last week of the season, then got roughed up by the Dodgers in kind of a meaningless game after they were already clinched. But he's another guy, just a knockout slider. Really like what he brings in terms of the velocity and then the off-speed pitches. A guy who can be a 6th starter or a reliable bullpen piece, I think, this year, and I'm really excited to see how he comes along. As you look further down that list, I think the first 2 outfielders, Mitchell and Frelick there, aren't really necessarily guys that I expect to see this year, unless we see some injuries and, want to get a look at Garrett Mitchell. I don't expect to see him up there. Sal Frelick was their 2021 first rounder, so I don't expect to see him. Bryce Terang, depending on, depth needs or whatever, if they should lose, Adames or Rios or even Colton Wong for a length of time, maybe they think about bringing up Terang. I think as far as MLB readiness, that's probably their best hitting option right now. And the other guy that I'm kind of keeping my eye on and excited to see make it to the majors is Ethan Small, that other left-hander there on the prospect list. Not a blow you away kind of velocity, low 90s, but really great command, and was posting a 2.06 ERA and 9 starts across AAA last year after posting similar numbers in AA. Noticed there was a kind of drop off on the strikeout ability at the AAA level, so that's something to keep an eye on. If he can, continue to demonstrate that he can strike guys out at the AAA level, and the Brewers feel good about bringing him up as either a bullpen piece or a spot starter or something like that. I'm looking into that, but other than that, I think that's a pretty good look at the prospects who are most likely to contribute this year. I think everyone else other than that, we've seen a little bit of Corey Ray in the past couple of years, sparingly. But he's another guy, outfielder, speed and a little bit of contact as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty, that's pretty much it as far as the pipeline goes for the Brewers. Cause they're, like we said, there isn't a massive amount to speak of, among the overall farm system.
Yeah, if the Brewers were smart, they'd call up Ethan Small every time the Reds were in town or they came to Cincinnati. Left-handed pitcher.
Oh, Ashby too. I mean, yeah, Ashby was great against lefties, down the stretch there. So, yeah, definitely having left-hander options out of the bullpen is something that they got to keep in mind for some of those, hitters that the Reds got for sure.
I grade my prospect list a little bit different than most. Like that's a really good baseball team, like a baseball name prospect list right there. There's some good baseball names on that list.
Still better than Keith Law's rankings.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Zach, I did want to ask you real quick. I've kind of asked everyone this question. Reds fans really turned on ownership this past year, like we've never seen before. Milwaukee's a very similar city, population wise, and I think TV market and all that kind of stuff. But they're behind the Reds in payroll last year, and then as we speak right now. Do you get any of the same sense from the average Brewers fans that they're upset that the team's not spending more, or has winning kind of cured all in that?
I think winning has definitely had a positive impact. I think, as I've kind of reflected on the last couple of years of Brewers feedback on this, I think that the majority or the shift as far as Brewers fans thinking really came when Christian Yelich was signed to the long-term deal. Because I think as soon as we saw that deal coming up as Brewers fans and we saw the level that Yelich was performing at, we're like, well, it's been a great couple of years, but he's gone as soon as that contract is up, or we're going to trade him and we should get what we want, we'll get what we can, now. And to see them, splurge and make that move, assuming that he's able to right the ship and essentially become, kind of what Ryan Braun was, at least a serviceable veteran down the stretch of his career. I think Brewers fans are pretty thrilled about that. And we've seen that payroll, steadily climb. They were down near the bottom for a number of years, in the sub $50 million payroll, it seemed like, for a number of years there. And they're definitely, I think the owner, Mark Antanasio, is really rising to the moment, as far as, making conscious moves and empowering his management team to go after players. I certainly don't feel like there is an overwhelming feeling among Brewers fans that Brewers ownership is being too stingy and not bringing guys in. And while there may have been some skeptics as we saw the big name pitchers sign to big deals elsewhere and realize we were never going to get some of these big starters that have been available over the last couple of years. But now we're seeing that faith in the process for those of us that have stuck around kind of pay off, as we've got a number of guys in Woodruff and Burns and Peralta that are under team control, and are relatively affordable, at least for now. So I would say generally the impressions of the Brewers fan base as far as the dollar amounts being spent right now are pretty favorable, and nobody's too upset about the look of the team right now. I think most people are pretty happy with the moves that they're making.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So we'll kind of get real quick, kind of talk about the league as a whole. We do see here the spring training likely be delayed. We're starting to see more and more reasons that the lockout kind of being terrible and falling apart on us. So, we were anticipating, hopefully knowing soon that we'd be ready for opening day. It's looking like that's not going to be the case from what things are saying. You're starting to see more and more of negotiations kind of going bad and being really terrible. And you're seeing players come out and talk more about all they're looking for is more fairness. I think Max Scherzer's even been pretty open about it. So kind of shocking that we're still in this situation, and unbelievable, really helpful to grow the game of baseball by not having a season, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal. Hey,
Carlos,
PA, stand up. Stay strong, brothers.
Carlos, do you get the sense that the season's going to get delayed? Because I don't feel very optimistic at this point.
Yes, I would definitely say yes, but I've kind of fallen into a trap of believing a conspiracy theory that they're waiting for the Super Bowl to be over to really take over the sports news. But I think so. I mean, it's almost hard not to, because they come to an agreement. They still got to iron everything out before they send everybody to spring training. and we're already there. Like next week, right? Should be where pitchers and
Yeah.
catchers report. So, I mean, you can't go much less than 6 weeks to get a pitcher ready, the starting pitcher ready for the year, without having to worry about injury and stuff like that. I know I think it was last year or maybe the year before, where they had the second summer camp or whatever it was, and it was a little over a month, but man, that's getting dangerously close, because even though you're a professional and you should be ready to go, it's different when you have to amp it up like during a game as a pitcher. Like, you can throw as many bullpens as you want, but it's not the same intensity as when there's a man in that box. It's crazy. Like, you activate muscles you haven't activated yet, and those got to get sore and become a natural movement where you don't have to worry about again. It's a lot more than what people think goes into it. So I think that's why it's going to delay a little bit. I don't think it's going to be months, but I think it'll be a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think everything I've read was 5 weeks is the bare minimum from the time they strike a deal to being able to start the season. The one interesting thing that I did see is our friend Genosaurus Rex quoted a story. The owners need to get 145 games in 22 to avoid losing, I guess, some of their TV money. So I guess that's kind of positive. Is hey, I guess this. You certainly think they're not going to want to, lose more than, I don't know, Duff math here, 17. Is that right? 17 games.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to lose any more than that. And they certainly don't want to go any deeper into November, because the longer you go, the more established football is and the less relevant the MLB postseason would be. I don't know, Zach, what's your thoughts? I mean, do you have any optimism that the season is going to start on time?
Well, I think Carlos's points there were excellent, just about, the things that us fans may not know about how long it takes to get those muscles activated and get players going. And certainly just the lack of movement that we've seen so far is certainly disheartening. I'm not optimistic at this point that we're starting on time. And I think that 145, number for the owners to keep the money that's coming to them in TV deals is an interesting thing to keep an eye on, for sure. Because at this point, it sounds like both sides are dug in pretty deep, and once this starts costing one side or the other or both money, I think is when we're going to really start to see some movement. And I think the reality is that this past couple of weeks, at least, there hasn't been any money at stake, and we've seen how that has not incentivized one side or the other at times to come to the negotiating table. So it's disheartening for me as a fan, because I actually got into baseball because of the NFL lockout back in 2010. I wasn't really a huge baseball fan, and the fact that the NFL was locked out and there was no training camp news or off-season news to keep me busy, I decided to tune into this Brewers team that I was taking an interest in, and that's kind of the story of how I became a fan of baseball. So it's I guess I'm gonna have to find a new sport again this year.
Damn, that's a pretty cool story.
Well, I don't know if you know, there was an NBA team in your state that just won a championship.
Yeah,
They're pretty good.
I do know that.
Yeah.
Actually, do you got time? I got a quick Giannis story that's pretty fun. I like to tell. So I was I was a sports radio intern for WTMJ Sports Radio, and basically what I had to do was I went into the locker room after games, and I would record post-game sound on this little recorder in the locker room. And this one night, I think Brandon Knight was the big scorer for the Bucks, and his locker was just instantly surrounded. I was wrapping up a interview with another player, and his locker was instantly surrounded by 3 TV cameras and a bunch of reporters. So I'm instantly boxed out because I absolutely got to get real close for radio sound with the microphone. And Giannis comes out of the shower in a towel, and his locker is right next to Brandon Knight's. So we're both boxed out of where we're supposed to be. And at this point, Giannis, this was like 2013, 14. So Giannis at this point, is not a big player on the team. He's a kind of fringe contributor and not really somebody that we interviewed all that much, because at that point I think he wasn't super confident in his English yet. So we're both just kind of standing there, and he looks at me and without any words, he just gestures for me to hand me his mic, or hand him my mic, and I flick it on and I hand it to him, and he reaches with like his 10-foot wingspan over the crowd of reporters to try and get me some sound. And I just
awesome.
love to tell that story because that's just the kind of guy that Giannis is. I mean, what other NBA player could you imagine LeBron doing anything other than pushing me aside if that were the case? So I just love that story. It's something that I'll take with me for a long time because it's just the kind of guy that Giannis is. But yeah, we got a pretty good basketball team to root for these days too. But
Nice.
Yeah, you got that. I also noticed you're a Marquette grad, so obviously that's gotta be fun this year.
shock in the world, baby.
Yeah, I root for Xavier, and I cover Xavier. So
Okay.
I didn't get to see them this year. I had COVID that week, so my intern filled in for me. Thank God. So I didn't get to see Marquette come down here, but they looked really good the game we played up there.
Yeah, I mean it's unbelievable what Shaka's been able to do here in year one, because you think with a basketball coach, coming in for a college program, it probably takes 2-3 years to get their guys in there, but he's just taken on this ranked schedule and doing things that we haven't seen for almost a decade in Marquette basketball. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, it's good to see, man. It's been fun. So we'll kind of go real quick, talk about so Baseball America gave the Reds the 7th best farm system, as we've kind of talked about with Zach through part of the show with the Brewers system. Keith Law, who is now trying to be the biggest villain of all of us, of any baseball fans, who Reds fans apparently, gave the Reds like a pretty low rating at 19, and did not have Nick Lodolo on his top 100 list or his barely missed list, although a 38-point strikeout rate, a 2.31 ERA, pretty funny. So unbelievable there that it was kind of good getting that rating there. But yeah, no love for, I guess, the Hunter Green Nick Lodolo crew from outside of here, even though our man RM Layton gave us a really good preview of the farm system earlier this year. So
Yeah, this is where I remind you that Keith Law said the Reds were going to score fewer runs in 2021 than 2020, and they scored almost a full run more per game. So he was incredibly off. So now I think Baseball America, I think, that's pretty much, I think, the consensus from a lot of others that the Reds are around 7th, and that's encouraging. I think that's great to see, the Reds, cracking the top 10, because the Reds already have some really good MLB ready talent in India and Stevenson. And when you're going to have, a good farm system behind that, I think you're set up well for a nice future here. Might not be in 2022, but I think they got a lot of good things going for them for sure.
yeah, I agree. A lot of fun to watch. And then we got the note that Jonathan India and Nick Senzel will be heading out to LA to support the Bengals in the Super Bowl. Jonathan India was, of course, at the opening playoff game against the Raiders. That was pretty cool. He got shown on the Jumbotron during the game and literally had the loudest cheer in the stadium that wasn't Joe Burrow. It was kind of awesome how much the city has grown to love him. So I'm excited about that. And then also Nick Senzel joined him as well. And looks like Trevor Plouffe is going to be rocking the Rams there. That's fine. Trevor Plouffe won't do anything in life anyway, right?
Whoa.
Wow.
What did he do to you, buddy?
Nothing. It's just the first Super Bowl of my lifetime, so everything's bitter.
I texted him off. I was like, who is that in the white jersey?
But
Is
that
it
being
Trevor
said,
Plouffe? I thought Trevor Plouffe was a pitcher. No?
I don't know.
I thought it was.
Nick? Get some explaining to do, bruh.
The third baseman. What are you talking about? You made me second guess myself.
Who's really?
Trevor Plouffe, baseball third baseman, is what comes up. So
Yeah, you can't believe everything you see on the internet, Nick.
I guess not. But before we do get out of here, Zach, man, you were awesome. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time to talk and kind of give our fans, our listeners, a preview of the Brewers. Before we do get out of here, please take a second to shout out your social media where people can interact with you, anywhere we can find your work. The floor is yours, man, by all means.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me, and Nick for reaching out. It was a pleasure to be aboard with you guys and talk some Brewers. Excited, hopefully, that we do get a baseball season here in the next few weeks, because, boy, us Wisconsin sports fans are really looking forward to it after the rough ending to the Packers season and Rodgers watch. But you can find me at Zac Bellman, _WNY there, as it says on the bottom. My work is on the USA Today Network / Gannett network of newspapers. I'm a Central Wisconsin prep sports reporter, but I also cover some major league stories. We got some people from our area like Dalton Varsho of the Diamondbacks who have made it to the majors, and I get to cover some stuff like that as well, and always have some scorching hot takes as far as Wisconsin sports are concerned. So check me out there on Twitter, and thanks again so much for having me, you guys. It was a real pleasure speaking with all of you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a blast.
Good stuff, buddy. Appreciate it.
So go ahead and Rick, once again, then we're going to go wrap up this week's edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live, brought to you by Bet Online, our good friends over there. So make sure you get your prop bets in, like Joe Burrow 7 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Count it down. It's happening. Don't really put 7. That's ridiculous. You'll lose a lot of money. But make sure, just give a heads up. Next Tuesday, we're actually going to be doing our show. I'm sorry. We're doing our show next Tuesday, the 15th. We have Valentine's Day, and as married men, we got to take our wives and have our night with them. So,
Bow, bow, bow.
So thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, please take a moment to give us a solid 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to Late Night Reds Talk Live. We're going to wrap up. Have a good night and enjoy the moment.
Yeah.